Welcome to another Erik Wait whiskey study. In this video, I'm going to be reviewing the Colonel E.H. Taylor small batch bottled in bond bourbon, bottled at 100% proof or 50% alcohol by volume. This is a really nice bourbon, but before I get into it, I want to tell you a little bit about a book that I really enjoyed and learned a lot from. This is Bourbon Justice, How Whiskey Law Shaped America by Brian Haara. Jason C. on the Mash and Drum had this author on his show. I'll put a link to that video at the end of this video. Check it out. It was just a really good show. Really informative. I really enjoyed it. This book is important for understanding not just whiskey in America, bourbon in America, but understanding how culturally it played an important part of establishing case law precedents for applying law here in the United States. And one of the interesting things in it is whether or not you can be sued for perhaps exaggeration in your advertisement, what they call poofery. In fact, we have a recent case of this, but is it poofery? Or is it lying? Or is it a typographical error? I'll let you decide. E.H. Taylor was a 300-year-old man from the 1600s and the first bourbon producer in Kentucky. A new product label released by Buffalo Trace Distillery today revealed that Colonel E.H. Taylor Jr., whose namesake adorns one of the distillery's most well-known offerings, was actually distilling in the 17th century, which would mean he was around 300 years old at the time of his death in 1923. The label was released as part of a mandatory TBB filing for a new product called Colonel E.H. Taylor Amaranth Grain of the Gods. The back label contained in the filing stated that Colonel Taylor was a bourbon aristocrat during the 1600s, a stunning revelation which, by our calculations, makes him the first European man in Kentucky and the first distiller in Kentucky. Alrighty, I think it's pretty clear somebody didn't do the math. Somebody did a typographical error. I don't think Colonel H. Taylor was around 300 years old when he passed away. That's just an oops. And I'm really surprised somebody didn't catch that before they submitted their back label to the TBB. Before I go any further into this bourbon, here are my notes, which I hope are more historically accurate on this bourbon. Who was Colonel Edmund Haynes Taylor Jr.? Edmund Haynes Taylor Jr. was born on February 12, 1830 in Columbus, Kentucky, so he wasn't 300 years old, and is widely considered by some to be the father of modern bourbon. Orphaned as a baby, Taylor was adopted by Edmund Haynes Taylor Sr. and was raised in Louisiana by his great-uncle Zachary Taylor, who would later become the 12th President of the United States. After attending the boys' French school in New Orleans, Taylor moved back to Kentucky and matriculated to B.B. Sayers Academy. Following the footsteps of his father, Taylor became involved in banking and came to the aid of several Kentucky distilleries that were suffering from reconstruction. In 1869, Taylor purchased a small distillery located on the banks of the Kentucky River. After christening the distillery OFC Distillery, OFC was an abbreviation for Old Fire Copper, Taylor began renovating and modernizing the plant. He purchased copper fermentation tanks, new grain grinding equipment, and unique columnar stills. During his tenure, Taylor also implemented several innovative distilling techniques, including aging bourbon in climate-controlled rickhouses. Armed with distilling experience and a political pedigree, Taylor, together with Treasury Secretary John G. Carlisle, was instrumental in passing the Bottled in Bond Act of 1897. The act required that any spirit labeled as bonded or bottled in bond be the product of one distiller at one distillery during one distillation season. In addition, the Act required that bonded spirits be aged in a federally bonded warehouse under U.S. government supervision for at least 4 years and bottled at 100 proof. Colonel E.H. Taylor Jr. Single Barrel Bourbon is aged for 11 years and 7 months in new American oak casks in a century-old warehouse constructed by Taylor. Once the bourbon has reached its peak maturity, it is bottled in bond at 100 proof or 50% alcohol by volume. Colonel E.H. Taylor Jr. Single Barrel Bourbon earned a gold medal at the Los Angeles International Wine and Spirits Competition in 2012 and earned a score of 94 points from Wine Enthusiast. In addition, it earned a score of 97 points, 2 points higher than Pappy Van Winkle 23-year-old bourbon at the Ultimate Spirits Challenge in 2012. So this bourbon only cost about $40 to $50. This is going to be, I think, an excellent example of a real value play on bourbon. And I'm almost afraid to say that because I found I really, really liked it. And by calling it a real value play, I'm afraid, oh no, this will be the next bourbon that's going to start jumping up in prices, because I really hope it doesn't. I had 2 glasses of it. I thought, okay, got a really good understanding of this bourbon. I'm ready to do the review, but I decided, I've been doing these bourbon reviews almost like day after day, almost one every day during Bourbon Month, March 2019. And I thought, I want to give this an extra day to think about. So even when I didn't have it up to my nose and wasn't tasting it, I was thinking about this bourbon for an entire day and analyzing. And I then compared my notes with a few others from some other whiskey tubers, such as the Scotch Test Dummies. I really like this bourbon. Now, in some ways, it has some typical bourbon notes. You get the corn, some caramel corn, canned corn, cinnamon, nutmeg, baking spices, some fresh oak. But it's on the palate that I found that it really has some uniqueness to it. It's not super, it has some sweetness to it, but then it kind of dries, and it actually feels tight, as if it's got some tannin to it. It feels a little bit astringent. It's got some spice to it that is beyond the typical baking spices. I would say this actually has a little bit of ginger in it. Kind of reminds me of gingerbread cookies, some graham crackers, some Nilla wafers, a little bit of vanilla pudding. It has a nice spice on the back, a little bit of a kick to it, just a little bit of licorice and anise. It starts off sweet, then kind of goes dry and has a nice lingering spicy finish. It's silky across the palate. I feel like this whiskey has more structure. It has more backbone. And these are terms I usually talk about, or use when I'm talking about a wine. When I'm talking about a wine with good acidity and good tannin structure. Something that doesn't feel flabby or too weak or too soft. That's kind of how I feel about this bourbon. I think what's given it is, I think it did pick up perhaps a little bit of wood tannin from the aging. And I think that spice kick as well gives it some structure and sort of fills up the mid palate. So rather than just sort of round, creamy notes around the side and the back side, the spice note fills in the middle. If you've ever had a Meritage or a Bordeaux style wine where they put in a little bit of Petit Verdot, I know I'm talking about wine in a bourbon review, but Petit Verdot does that. You have Cabernet Sauvignon, you have Merlot, you have Cab Franc, you have maybe Malbec, all these fruit notes to it. But Petit Verdot, which also gives a little bit of purple color to a wine as well, fills in that mid palate. And I kind of feel like the spice does that too. Rather than just flavors around the sides and in the back and in the front, it goes right down the middle. And the thing I get from this is, have you ever had a cream soda, not from your regular, grocery store, the super sweet, in the cans, mass-produced cream soda, but have you ever had a cream soda from a health food store where they use real natural ingredients, or a root beer, not like Fanta or A&W, or not that there's anything wrong with those root beers, but one from a health food store that has more of a rooty character to it? I kind of get that as well. There's sort of this very organic, natural spice character to it that I really, really, really like. It's a really delicious bourbon. I like the development. I like the structure. I like the mouthfeel. I like everything about it. I'm going to give this a solid 90 points. And I've seen this anywhere between $40 and $50, and I've looked on the internet at various other sources to it, and it seems, at least for this bottle, at least for now, the prices are holding. I didn't see any insane prices like, $100 or something like that for it. It seems like it's really holding its value, and I really, really like it. So I want to highly, highly recommend it. So I want to recommend to you, if you learn about bourbon, learn about the history of the United States, I want to highly recommend you get this book. I really, really enjoyed it. Bourbon Justice by Brian Haara. And I want to highly recommend this bourbon. I think this is absolutely fantastic. Now, I only went 90. I didn't go higher than 90. But I think if I spent some more time, and I just getting it now below the shoulder, I think if I spent some more time with it, played around with it, maybe even put some water into it, played around with it, I think I might even like it more. And I did a re-review, might even give it a higher score. But right now, I'm good in it. I really, really like it. All right, that's it for this review. If you subscribe to this channel, I want to thank you very much. If you haven't yet subscribed, you like watching my videos, I would greatly appreciate it if you would subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and share with your friends on Facebook, Twitter, and other social networking channels. Until next time, cheers. Hey, if you liked my review, be sure to check out these other whiskey videos.